Hello Rockstar Parents! Welcome to my channel. If you're new, this is our Rockstar Parents community where we raise our children together. It takes a village to raise a baby, so this is what this channel is all about. In this video, I'm going to introduce and talk about the two-part series of the 5-part series about homeschooling. So in this video, we're going to talk about the different educational learning styles we can create for our children. There's different methodologies out there that I've done the research for that I want to share with you. So if you are currently thinking about or about to start homeschooling your child, you're going to love this series because it's about me doing all the research, cutting out all the legwork for you so that you've got all the information that you need to get yourself feeling confident as a parent to homeschool your child. If you're not thinking of homeschooling but you'll find it quite interesting, then you'll find this series useful as well, because you can still use some of these methodologies, these learning styles at home anyways, even if your child goes to school. So currently me and my husband, we're thinking about homeschooling our child as one of our possible options. I'm not going to try and vent about the educational system, but there's some methodologies that they're using in schools that I don't particularly agree with, for example exams and tests. So we're just looking at different alternative ways of educating our child as an option. So we haven't actually finalized whether we'll be homeschooling our little girl or not yet. But before I go into this video where I'm going to share the different learning styles that you can create in your home for homeschooling, do check out video number 1 if you haven't seen it already, which is all about the positives and negatives of homeschooling. So I'll leave the link above, it should come up now. So check that out if you haven't already, so that you can get a clear overview of what homeschooling is all about, what the positives are and what the negatives are. Now I'm going to dive in. I've got my laptop here. Woohoo! I'm going to dive in and share with you the different learning styles that we can choose from to homeschool our child if we decide to do homeschooling. So when I list them out, I've done research on them, and I basically was thinking of how can I mesh 1 or 2 different learning styles, and because you can choose several ones, you don't have to pick one specific style. And what I mean by style is literally the framework that you would use to educate your child. So I found research to summarize exactly what they are, and then we can then start to think about what would work for our children. So let's dive in. So the first one is, of course, the national curriculum that you can do at home. So if you decide to homeschool your child, you can actually use the whole curriculum. There's resources out there that you could use. You could use the school curriculum, which is basically a set of subjects and standards used by primary and secondary schools, so children learn the same things at the same time, right? It covers what subjects are taught and the standards children should reach at each subject. So academics must teach a broad and balanced curriculum including English, maths and science. So essentially, if I decided to homeschool my child for the primary school years, she would work towards her SATs. So I would teach her obviously maths, English and science and follow the curriculum in that sense as the framework, but then everything else will be adapted and created to whatever her interests are. So that is something I know I'll be doing anyways to get her prepared for her SATs. English, maths and science, so that she leaves with SATs at the end of her primary school years. So let's go into the different homeschooling styles now that I've researched here. So the first one we've got here is project based. So what that means is the different subjects, instead of them being taught as subjects, they're taught as different projects. So say for example we want to teach our children about the Roman times. They would then pick a specific era in the Roman times and create a project out of it. So what's often used are lap books. So it's using a theme such as the Romans. Children explore lots of different aspects of learning through a specific focus. So lap books are a popular way of creating projects, but this could incorporate anything. For example, making food dishes, dressing up, visiting relevant sites and museums, creating and dictating and directing a play, making pieces of artwork, etc. all around the subjects. Then we would then document their learning and their progress. So lap books are literally these great books that you could use. They can create themselves with colourful sheets of paper or put it in a folder, and they specifically have topic areas in that lap book So they could be on specific areas on, create a lap book on the Roman times, they could create a lap book on the weather, it could be anything that they're interested in. They could do a lap book on, I don't know, wildlife, plants. So they literally end up with a range of different books, which they can dive into each time when they want to look at a different project, a specific project. So I think that's super creative to get them to, you know, get really explorative, imaginative, learn how to collect information, research, consolidate it, summarize it into a project. And it's called a lap book because it's the size, you know, big enough for their lap that they can then hold it on their lap and go through it. So that's super cool. I like the sound of that. We also have Charlotte Mason, which is quite popular, and it uses nature and the arts to educate the whole child, not just the mind. So Charlotte Mason was very much follows a philosophy that that learning is very much about lifestyle. That the child not only learns in the classroom, but they learn every single day throughout their lifespan. And it's not just their mind that's being nourished with education, but their body and their soul. So it uses living books from specialists in the field and meaningful passages from great books to teach spelling and handwriting. So instead of, for example, worksheets that you may get from school to teach handwriting and spelling, they would actually observe what your child is interested in. So say she might be interested in, I don't know, the history of Oprah Winfrey, for example. We would get a book, one of her autobiographies, and we would actually learn spelling through her work, because then the child is inspired by what they're reading, they're learning about the author, and then they get to learn spelling that way as well. So therefore you're incorporating their interests with the task of learning how to spell and learn how to read and write. So I think that's really powerful. It really encapsulates and reinforces that love of learning, which is what I really like, instead of facts teaching. So short sessions in the beginning. So basically it's all about, in the beginning of their education, you would give them short bite-sized lessons, and then you would stop whenever the child is showing signs of boredom or struggle, so that you can cultivate a natural focus and concentration. So in the beginning, for example, with my daughter, we would have like 15 to 20 minute sessions of, say, for example, maths or English or science or history, and then we would stop there, especially if I see signs of boredom or struggle. And then we build on that time. You increase as they get older, as they get used to learning more and can take in more information, so that it really allows them to love learning. It doesn't become mundane or strainful. And she also says here, learning is not just in lessons, but throughout all of life, like I mentioned earlier. So it's very much a lifestyle, and it's all about building character, values, and morals. So I like the sound of that. It really does promote a bit of freedom within the schooling style, which is what I like. So then we've got the Rudolf homeschool framework here, which is based on the work of Rudolf Steiner, and stresses the importance of educating the whole child, body, mind, and spirit. So children in Waldorf's homeschool do not use standard textbooks. Instead, the child creates their own books. So learning is facilitated through the arts, so dance, drama, music, arts, and handcrafts, etc. It has rhythms for the day, so it kind of uses it's got rhythms for the day, the week, the years, in celebration of the seasons and the events, which is super amazing. So we'll probably have a special event or a special projects for Easter, for example, the whole of April, rather than schedules. So it really does follow that. If you're into astrology, if you're into planets, if you're into the weather and kind of incorporating the education around that system, then it could be good and useful. And it has a very low tech activity approach, and it limits screen time, especially when the child is really young. And it's all about creating a calming, relaxing atmosphere ready for your child to learn. So I like the sound of that. I like the sound that it sounds quite kinesthetic, where the child creates their own workbooks, as well as just instead of just using textbooks. I like the sound of that because it really enhances creativity, and I like the sound of it having a rhythm. So it's got flexibility. You can literally tailor your sessions and your lessons to your child and their strengths, and you can really benefit from the different year-to-year events and the monthly events and the weekly events that happen by following a calendar. So that sounds really, really cool. And then we've got the unschooling. So what is unschooling? So this has the philosophy of life is learning. So it's very child-led, where children have the space to create and live out their passions and interests. Without the exclusion of textbooks learning, families focus on enriching the child's strengths and interests and is a highly child-centered approach to education. The child gets to choose which resources they use, and there is flexibility of structure. So you've got some families who don't have like they don't follow the curriculum. They literally are very flexible. They allow the child to choose what they want to do, when they want to do it. They don't always necessarily have bedtime routine or morning routine. They just really go with the flow. So there's a spectrum. You can have that kind of schooling where it's literally child-led, and you can have where it's unschooling when it's very flexible there, but there is a bit of structure and schedule within that as well. So I do like the sound of that freedom. I am someone, however, that's quite organized and likes to have a bit of a routine going. So I think I'll be towards the middle of this spectrum, where I will have a framework, I'll follow the curriculum, but then I'll also allow flexibility. For example, if my daughter one day doesn't want to do any studying, she wants to play and do creative play instead, then we could do that for the whole day. Like, that's how flexible I would want to be as well. Not every time, but I would allow space for that flexibility and for plans to change. So that's what I like about unschooling. So think about what it is that you like about these different schooling styles. Take note of them, and that will help you make your final decision on what styles work for you. And remember, even if you decide not to homeschool your child, you can still use these different methods when you're at home with your child, maybe helping them with homework or on the weekends. You can still tailor their learning to this, despite what the methods that they use in school. So that's what I really like about it as well. So we've also got number 5, which is Montessori method, the Montessori method by Marie Montessori. So it focuses on life skills, for example, cooking. So children learn no matter what. This is their philosophy, right? Hence, they model the correct behavior. So it's important for them to model our behavior, the correct behavior, and set the right environment rather than directly teaching them. So it's about creating that educational environment, and it's quite child-led. So it's got a developmental approach with sensitive periods. So times when a child is particularly receptive and curious about a particular knowledge or skill, that's the best time to learn about it. So language, numbers, and order are some of the sensitive periods. So the parent will then observe what it is that they enjoy doing. They may ask questions, but they would observe them, and then they would look at when they're seem more receptive to learning, more in the mood. You know, when you're in the mood to learn something, you're in the mood to read a book, you're in the mood to watch a video and learn about something. We have those periods in our day-to-day, and then we have those periods in our day-to-day where we don't want to do anything and we just want to binge on like soaps, right? So it's the same for children. So the parent will watch out for those times, and then that's when they will introduce a topic that is of interest to the child. So that's what we call the sensitive periods. But even though they can still use textbooks, it is very family focused, and it enriches the child's strengths and interests while supporting them in some of the weaknesses. But it's very much about reinforcing their strengths, which is what I love. So this is very good if you want to build your child's confidence. If you feel like your child is leaving the education system because their confidence has been reduced, and you want to kind of get their confidence back up, I reckon Montessori is one good way of doing that, because it allows your child to express themselves, to focus on their strengths, and you can give them that support to reinforce and really live out their passions, and that as a prerequisite increases their self-esteem, increases their self-confidence. So that sounds super, super good. Alright, then we've got world schooling. So this is about, hence the word world, about travel. So families travel the world and structure their educational resources around the children, learning from each country that they're in. So it's similar to unschooling style. So imagine it's not much structure, there isn't a curriculum, it's freestyle approach, and then they travel the world and learn from different cultures, different people, the foods that they eat, the things that they do, the activities that they do. They probably do projects as well, and it's very flexible in that way. So it's about broadening the mind and traveling the world. So this is useful if you know that you want to travel the world, you want to bring your children with you, but you also want them to be educated and be learning. So this is world schooling is definitely something to look into when you want to do that. I know that if I was to homeschool my child, obviously we will be traveling, and we'll probably travel more as well, because we could travel during the cheaper periods, right? When children are in school, we can go on holiday, and I would make it quite sensory. I would make it a creative experience. I would get her to learn something new, so that's something really, really exciting. I would go and do more research on different kind of activities we could do around world schooling that we can then incorporate in the countries that we're in, so I like the sound of that. Okay, so then the last homeschooling style is called bulk educate, so, or aesthetic homeschooling. So it's basically what it means is when you are aware that there is no one way to educate, and that we can custom educate our children. So it means about incorporating and mix and matching different learning styles and different homeschooling styles to our child, and creating a suitable, individualistic education curriculum, if you want to call it that, educational style for your family and for your child. So basically it's with the ethos that every single child is different. Every single child learns differently. So if you know that your child is very visual, if you know that your child is very kinesthetic and likes to use their hands, if you know they're very creative, if they know, you know they like to move around and they're quite active, you can incorporate the different homeschooling styles that I've mentioned above previously to tailor to those different learning styles, and then you end up having a very broad, tailored learning educational homeschooling style for your child, which is what I love. Because for me, what is so important, and one of the reasons why I'm even considering homeschooling, is because I know that I would be able to tailor her educational experience to her, and then the more you can do that, the more they're gonna love learning. And if they love learning, there's no way they can get it wrong. There's no way they can't flourish and learn so much about themselves and the world. So that's what super intrigues me about it. So yeah, so this is literally the learning styles. So I hope that really helps. Definitely subscribe so that you can watch the next video, where I'm going to be sharing what activities, what facilities, services, communities are out there for homeschooling students in London. So if you're in London, you're going to find this super useful, because for me the social element is so important. It's a deal breaker for me. What clubs are out there? How can they meet other children their age or older? You know, I want her to have a really healthy social life, so I'm going to definitely do a video on that coming up next. It's going to be coming out next week, so stay tuned, subscribe for that one. And then we're going to be exploring how to choose a homeschooling style. So we'll actually go back to this homeschooling styles that we've just gone through now, and then we're going to decide, okay, what could work for us, and then that will give us an idea of what it could look like to educate at home. And then I'm going to look into another video how to actually homeschool and what equipment and resources that we would need on a budget, right? And then also we're going to look into what the new possible government policies could be around homeschooling, because they could have a new registration system that they're going to introduce for homeschool students. So definitely stay tuned for that. Very excited about it. If you've got any questions, let me know. If you know of any other homeschooling styles that I haven't mentioned, leave them in the comments. That would be super useful for everyone. Definitely leave a thumbs up if this helped. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.